Hello everyone and welcome to the session. Sitecore Experience Accelerator, or SXA as we all know it, has transformed the way we look at Sitecore implementations since its release 4 years ago. What can you expect from this session? We are not going to talk about what SXA is, the science behind it, or any technical details. We are looking at SXA from the lens of UX and design and going to talk about 6 principles that you must consider, especially for large and complex rollouts. We have a lot to cover in just a couple of minutes, so let's dive into it. I am Akhil Mittal, Vice President Digital Solutions at Altudo, a Sitecore Platinum Implementation partner.
And I'm Alvin Young, Senior Creative Director at Altudo, making sure your visual design matches up with the right customer experience. A lot of the ideas in this deck were inspired by the great Bruce Lee, whose fighting style was a hack in of itself. His base philosophy of always moving and not being confined to a particular solution really resonates when we're thinking about SXA and the promise of its ability to adapt to pretty much any situation. In fact, the 6 core principles of SXA read like a Jeet Kune Do manual. Let's go ahead and break down each of these into a specific hack that we can talk about. First up, let's talk about fluidity in practice, where modularity is the key here. Every single website component needs to be created from inception to be part of a system. Things should always work together seamlessly. Unfortunately, most content components are created as one-offs. Before you know it, you've got a lot of components that are discrete and not designed as part of a system. Fortunately, the hack is pretty simple. Instead of having a bunch of modules doing a bunch of different things, go ahead and make super modules, modules that can accommodate lots of features that can be turned on and off as necessary in each use case.
Very well said, Alvin. We now move to hack number 2. Reusability is a key factor in bringing efficiency in your design process. For complex and large volume scenarios such as multi-site, multi-geo, multi-brand environment, bringing reusability and efficiency is not just an option, but a necessity. The issue in such scenario is the fragmented delivery model where each brand or GOT manages its own feature list, adding to disparate backlogs. This leads to little or no reuse across these teams, creating huge overheads. Rolling out a new site in such a scenario will take almost the same amount of time and effort as it took for the first website. Moreover, maintaining and updating each site over time requires bigger and bigger effort. The hack here is to build a library of reusable components. This consumes a little more effort during the first few sites, but then every new site rollout is all about reusing these components and selecting the brand theme. All the teams then work efficiently with this central library of components. This also makes the task of maintenance and updates much easier, with the updates made to this component library and pushed across all the sites. This also brings tremendous efficiency for governance and compliance initiatives, including content governance or accessibility compliance and so on. Here is a sample template of the component library that Altudo built for a recent client engagement. This is just a sample and may vary depending upon the requirements and complexity of your project or your initiative.
Thanks, Akhil, that was great. But systems thinking and how things work together is only going to get us so far, especially when it comes to type. We've always thought of typography as a tool for communication, but lately it's doing more than that. It's actually indicating where people should go. Take the average cell phone. Most of the time, you've got type that's either too big or too small. Bolding is running rampant, it's everywhere. But also you've got the ability to use color blocks and things like that. What most people are doing is they want to make things special. They want things to just really stand out. Unfortunately, when everything is special, nothing is special. The hack is really just an old adage. Just because you can do a thing doesn't mean you have to do a thing. Bolding weights and things like color backgrounds, those are all great, but you've really got to use it sparingly, because how well someone can read a screen full of text is really going to be dependent on whether or not they can find what it is that they're actually looking for. My favorite hack on this list is harmony. Consistency for a brand or a business is absolutely king. I mean, let's face it, nowadays we've got a lot of different devices, a lot of different places that the website shows up, and the way we've gone about trying to address that is really the issue. We don't really have a way other than breakpoints to really figure out how a device is going to handle our content. But what we can do is start with the smallest device. A smartphone will give you a really good idea of what you want to display at a given time. As you get more screen real estate from a tablet, a laptop screen, and then onto a desktop, you'll be able to feel what's right for your brand and definitely for the customer experience.
Thanks, Alvin, for the great insights. Okay, let's move to hack number 5. No one can appreciate the importance of speed better than a marketer. SXA promises fast load times, but only if the design embraces the virtues of velocity. It is easier said than done. There is never a single silver bullet to address performance optimization. It is always tempting to go for quick fixes, and I'm not saying that we should not do that. Of course, lowest hanging fruits the first. But applying only a few fixes lead to a cumulative effect later on. You must have heard a ton of horror stories where scalability took a big hit because several growth initiatives had to be deprioritized only to address the performance issues. The hack here is to address both the front end as well as the back end fixes. For example, front end measures such as responsive images, lazy load images, image compression are must to do. At the same time, back end fixes such as deferred CSS, deferred JavaScript also need to be looked at. A good list of such backend measures is provided in the below mentioned Sitecore documentation link. SXA Asset Optimizer, as an example, is of great help but often underutilized. Sitecore, and specifically SXA, is fundamentally scalable, but the design has to support that future growth organically. Scalability is tough to predict and test. Only with specific techniques, one can gauge how scalable design will be. Going back to my example of a multi-brand, multi-site environment, we start with a component library in mind as we discussed in hack number 2. But the business team or the marketing stakeholders often ask for multiple variations of these components, thereby defeating the entire purpose of a library. Too many variations will in fact make this process more cumbersome than regular fragmented delivery model that we saw. The hack here is to expand and compromise, if I may use that word. Rather than trying to achieve 100% by creating multiple variations, it is advisable to create wider modules and accommodate say 90%. Educating various stakeholders including business and marketing teams is a critical part of this hack. This ensures scalability to grow almost without limits with the best efficiency. These super modules and components help realize the dream of SXA growth principles. This approach also helps in focusing towards high value added initiatives such as implementing field level personalization. Well, that's it for today. There is a lot to experiment and no end to learning.
And keep in mind, these are just a few of the ideas that we came up with. We're super excited to see what you guys come up with next.
Please feel free to share your questions or feedback through email or LinkedIn. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.